Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to my channel. I hate rock music. And today is a real treat for me because I love this band. I love their album. I love their albums. And the band is 50 Foot Hose. Truly amazing band. The fact that they had the courage and audacity to put out a record like this in 1968, it was recorded in 1967, and just unbelievable record. Uh, Probably the most psychedelic record ever made, and that's really saying something. And the fact that it came out in 1968 in the middle of all these psychedelic guitar bands and came out with this mixture of a rock band with all kinds of electronics all over it. It's just a singular band and a singular album. And I don't understand reviewers who kind of pick through it and say there's only a couple of good tracks on it. I think it's a stunning piece of work. And I would say that there's a couple of tunes on it that are a little more conventional, but even those tunes are fucked up with all the weird electronic stuff going on, including a weird cover of Billie Holiday's "God Bless the Child." And they're just an amazing band. So let's get into the history a little bit. They started in 1966, and they were formed around a guy named Louis Marcheschi, and he developed a whole bunch of weird electronics himself, including a homemade instrument that integrated a theremin, a fuzz box, some cardboard tubes, and a speaker from a World War II bomber. And the kaleidoscope he managed just to get out of all this stuff is just stunning. And so he put out a single in 1967 called Bad Trip that's one of the most bizarre singles ever made, and it can be played on 33 or 45, and either way it's one of the most fucked up, damaged, drug-induced things I've ever heard. And that's saying something because I've heard a lot of music in my day. I've heard a lot of damaged music. I've heard a lot of psychedelic music. I've heard a lot of electronic music, and this single Bad Trip stands alone. And so then he added David Blossom and Nancy Blossom on guitar and vocals to flesh out the band, and did some demos, and some of the demos have been released. And then to put together the album, they added Larry Evans on guitar, Kim Kimsey on drums, and Terry Hanley on bass, and another bass player named Robert Godbeck was involved at some point. And so Louis Marchese was influenced by a lot of psychedelic rock, but also Edgar Varese, John Cage, Terry Riley, some of the people at the forefront of modern electronics and contemporary classical music. And it's not exactly like he integrated that into the band sound, but he certainly integrated some of the wildest electronics that were possible in that era. And the fact that he put it all together himself is really crazy. And so they recorded the album in 1967. It was released in December of 1967. The album called Cauldron, and it is just unbelievable. And I can see why bands like Pere Ubu were influenced by 50 Foot Hose, one of the more obvious influences on Pere Ubu. But even 50 Foot Hose makes Pere Ubu sound like the Monkees. It's so incredible. And it kind of starts out with conventional songs in some cases, and then it just gets obliterated with all these weird electronics going in and out of the mix, and it just creates a brew unlike anything I've ever heard before. And by the time you get to the end of the album, the title song Cauldron, there's backwards drums and all kinds of weird laughing and background vocals, and almost a lilting chant of a vocal on it. It's just unbelievable. And the fact that they got not only recorded this album but got it released is mind-boggling as well. And they got signed by Limelight Records, and Limelight Records was actually originally run by Quincy Jones, and almost all of it was jazz. They managed to sign up a couple of rock bands, 50 Foot Hose being one, the Swedish psychedelic band Mecky Markman was another one, and then a single by the New York band Child Herald which also has a lot of electronics on it. So basically anything that was involved with electronics, somehow they got interested in. And Limelight Records actually released an incredible series of contemporary electronic music records on the label. I think there's upwards of 20 titles, and they're all incredible, the cutting edge of electronic music at the time. So hats off to Limelight for doing that. But it says a lot that the only handful of rock bands they signed were Child Herald, Mecky Markman, and this 50-Foot Hose. And it is just a one-of-a-kind record, and it's still staggering and jarring to hear even today. And they managed to play around San Francisco a lot. They toured with Blue Cheer, Chuck Berry, and Fairport Convention. It's hard to even imagine what audiences thought of them. And they ended up breaking up in 1969 because most of the members ended up joining the cast of Hair, which is a pretty weird way to end a band. So they were around from 66 to 69. We have the album Cauldron, and it truly is a cauldron. I can't stress enough just how weird it is. There's a basic rock band in there, and then these charming but amateurish vocals by Nancy Blossom. But it really works, and it makes the record even that much stranger that they have a female vocalist in the midst of all this. And there's a couple lilting hippie ditties, including the cover of God Bless the Child, but some of the other stuff is just insane. Some of it's almost heavy. There's a lot of really great oblique guitar parts. The band is slightly sloppy in parts, but you don't really notice it that much because of the maelstrom of wild sounds coming at you. And so the record as a whole just has some really cool, interesting guitar work. And they would be an interesting band even without all the electronics. And in fact, we know that because a collection of demos and alternate versions called Bad Trip came out. And it has the stripped down band. There's no electronics on it. And one thing that's on there is a almost 12-minute psychedelic jam called Desire that's truly over the top. Once again, they're kind of sloppy, kind of primitive, but by the time you're finished with the 11 or 12 minutes of Desire, I'm really stunned at what the band was actually like, even aside from the electronics. And then, of course, there's some early demos on there from the demo tape, and they're definitely a lot more restrained than the Cauldron album, but an interesting addition to get the Bad Trip record as well, to have all the electronics removed. And it shows that a lot of the songs are actually pretty cool. And there's also a record put out in 1997 called Ingredients that has a lot more rarities on it, including, once again, some demos and alternate versions. And then, strangely enough, they reunited in 1997, and the first thing they put out was a live and unreleased, and then a brand new studio album called Sing Like Scaffold. And I can't believe that they actually retained all the spirit and the weirdness of the original band. And you hear that so seldom. A band gets together 30 years later, and they're just as whacked and interesting and damaged as they ever were. Although I can say that certainly the musicianship is a lot more proficient. The band is more solid on the Sing Like Scaffold record. But the fact that they were actually able to capture the original spirit in the band, of the band in all its glory is truly incredible. So a lot of times I only cover the original record by one of these old bands and leave someone else to talk about reunions and the like. But in this case, the 1997 album Sing Like Scaffold is a worthy addition to their catalog and a great follow-up, even though it's 30 years later. Incredible record. They actually make Pere Ubu sound tame, and that's really saying something. So again, a lot of reviewers don't seem to be that impressed by the band or or the entire record, but I think it's brilliant. I think it's audacious. I think it's whacked. I think it's damaged. I think it's courageous. I think it's singular. It's innovative. It's an album like no other out there. And even after all these years, decades, the record is still startling. And I know a lot of people are probably still not going to respond to it, but I have to say that it still completely blows my mind that a record like this was made and somebody released it. It's just incredible. I have to say, I actually heard it the first time around 1970. I bought it in cutouts for 44 cents. I had no idea what it was. It just looked like it was whacked. And I got it home, and let's see, in 1970, I was 13 years old. And I could hardly believe what I was hearing. I didn't have any reference points, but I knew it was weird, and I knew it was fucked up. And I really got into it because even at that age, I was starting to find a lot of records and cutouts that were pretty fucked up and weird and damaged. And I really responded to it, and that helped lay a roadmap for the rest of my life to really appreciate outsiders and really weird stuff. And they don't come any weirder than that. So I've been enjoying the record for probably 50 years now, and I, I'm just at a loss of words in a lot of ways to talk about 50-Foot Hose, and the name is great as well. So I think they're true visionaries. It's a one-of-a-kind record. I think it's a masterpiece. I dismiss all the people that give it lukewarm reviews and think there's only a couple good songs. I think it's just a stunning piece of work. And for the more adventurous out there that like stuff really weird but really cool, this is one to get. So needless to say, I'll put the links below to the album and the second album, 30 years later, the Bad Trip record. Check it all out. I hope I managed to turn somebody onto this band because they deserve all the attention and accolades they can get. Truly brave souls to have conceived of this music, to have recorded it, to have it be so consummate, and then to actually get it released. Incredible. One of my favorite and weirdest records of all time. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.